Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS fades and sleepers for this week's Valspar Championship. Going to take a look at the ownership side of things and consider some of the overhyped and maybe some of the overlooked players up top that you might want to either get to in GPPs if there are sleeper picks, guys that are being a little bit overlooked, or on the flip side with those fades, maybe players that you might want to consider avoiding because they're coming in at inflated ownership levels. This could be by far the most important video every single week because, the quality of player, us trying to find guys that fit the golf course is of course going to be useful, but even more useful is playing the ownership game, right? Trying to get that leverage to the field and avoiding guys that are going to be 25-30% owned because there's no one on the planet that's worth being 30-35% owned at this kind of course and these kind of conditions in this type of field. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this thing started. Bear with me here with my voice. I am extremely sick, just like a Keegan Bradley, who actually had to withdraw from this golf tournament. So maybe there was something up there in the air in Ponte Vedra that ended up getting both of us. But hey, we're going to power through. We're not going to withdraw from our content duties here. So we'll start with the fades. First off, we got Adam Hadwin at $9,200. He's coming in as the highest owned player in the slate right now. And because of that Keegan withdrawal, he's going to get even more steam as the week goes on. And I get the course fit. I understand that he's also a player that has played well here before, right? One, his decent form coming in. I mean, I played him last week at the Players where we ended up getting rewarded quite handsomely there. But what I worry about is first off the tee time wave. He's going off in the AM PM stack, which means that he's going to be in some of the worst conditions all week there tomorrow morning with up to 20-25 mile an hour wind gusts. And then there on the Friday afternoon, he's going to have even worse conditions, closer to sometimes 30-35 mile an hour wind gusts. So I know it's early to be looking at the weather, but he's in the quote unquote bad wave as of right now. And because I think he's a little bit overhyped with that performance at the Players, I think the time to hop on him was last week, right? When I talked him up, when we had him in plenty of our lineups at a course that also fit his game. So while I think that he's a decent course fit, decent player overall, that's why we got to him last week, I think that you're getting him at a price that's probably $2,000 too expensive. And then, like I mentioned, the highest owned player on the slate. So there are guys that are half the ownership around him, also in that AM wave, kind of like a Denny McCarthy, for example, that I would be much more willing to get to in the harder conditions just based on ownership alone, right? Playing 40% of somebody out of that AM PM stack is something that I'm definitely not going to be willing to do with somebody of Adam Hadwin's caliber. Next up, we've got ourselves Victor Perez, and I thought he was going to be like 5% owned. I thought he was going to be this low-owned little DP World Tour guy we could get to, and even my 15.6% number on him is apparently a little bit conservative right now because I see a few other ownership projections around the industry of 20%, even close to 30% when it comes to Victor Perez. So there seems to be a lot of steam coming in on the Frenchman who has been on an absolute heater internationally, including a win over the last month or so. And, we've seen him here in the PGA Tour before. He's been like $6,800. We've seen him at like $7,000, $7,100 before, in like 1% owned. Now, he hasn't had this kind of form before, but he's still that same caliber player. He was like a top 15, top 20 player on the DP World Tour. At this point, pretty much the same kind of thing, maybe a top 10 player now, right? I think he's definitely gotten a little bit better over the last year or so. That would be an understatement, I would say, with good old Victor Perez. But for him to be nearly 20% owned, like I said, 30% owned in some of these ownership projections is ridiculous to me. I mean, if we were talking about, a leverage play towards the top of the 7K range, then fine. But we've got legit tour players around him, right? Johnny Vegas, Steven Yeager, KH Lee, JT Poston, just a few $100s more expensive, or even cheaper. I mean, Joel Damon, Will Gordon, Garrick Higo, Nick Taylor. I mean, all of these guys are legitimate tour pros that are going to keep their card this year. And then Victor Perez, who's a huge unknown, who I think is probably in the same caliber of player, but should he be twice, three, sometimes even four times as owned as some of the guys around him? The answer is a massive no. Massive no. So even DP World Tour stands have to be cringing this week at this kind of ownership, and I'd have to think that a lot of them probably won't even get there themselves. So we'll have to keep an eye on the ownership. Hopefully it comes down. I mean, if it were to come down to like 8-9%, I'd buy back in. on a Victor Perez, but as it stands, somebody that I'm going to have to fade. And now let's get to the sleeper plays on the other side of the spectrum, right? Guys that I do want to get to. Number one would be Maverick McNeely, and he's in the AM PM wave, so I don't love that, right? I'd rather him be in that PM AM where you can get the better conditions. But in terms of his price tag, if he had any sort of form, he would be like 10 grand. He would be up here with like a Rose and Fleetwood. And then on top of that, he would be like 25, 30% owned. I've seen this before, right? Weak field event, whether it's in the fall swing, you've seen it multiple times. Even a few years ago, he would have been like 15, 20% owned. He's been in a little bit of a slump due to a shoulder injury, a clavicle injury, to be specific there. And he said last week that he felt a lot better, that he got stronger throughout the week, that he wanted to tee it up once again, which shows me that the injuries in the past, he should be getting back to what we're used to seeing from Maverick, which sure, he's going to be a little bit rusty, right? Maybe that's why he's a little bit cheaper. No one wants to get to him. But if he's even 80% of what he was before, he could easily finish top 20, top 15 in this event, especially with how weak the field is at the Valspar this year. So $8,700 I think is too cheap, and it's a little bit risky. That's why he's only 6% owned, but you also only have to play 15, maybe 20% if you want to get real frisky about it, right? When playing a McNeely this week and trying to get some leverage. And it's a calculated gamble that I'm going to be willing to take. I'm not saying that you have to, but I at least want to throw it out there for y'all. And lastly, we've got Alex Smalley, Mr. Hole-in-One, saw it myself. A little one-hop stop into the cup, pretty ridiculous. $7,400, only 5.4% owned. And just for evidence of the kind of player that he is under difficult conditions, look at that fall swing, right? Right around the Houston Open, couple top 10s at some real difficult tracks there in the fall. At least the toughest tracks of that fall swing, right? None of them are real bears like you have at this part of the schedule. But $7,400 for a player that's number 14 when it comes to the long-term ranking, a player that is more than adequate off the tee, is both long and accurate, which you love to see. The approach play can be a little bit inconsistent, but let's look at the shots gained metrics, right? I think they speak for themselves. He hasn't even been playing all that well. He's gaining in all three tee to green categories. This is his baseline, right? This is not him going out there finishing in a bunch of top 10s of late over the last 24 rounds. I think he has like one top 10 over that stretch. Has a few missed cuts mixed in. Now, the putter isn't always the most consistent for Alex Smalley. The approach play can be a little bit sporadic too. I do have to say, look, over the last 12 rounds, what's it look like? Where you at, Mr. Smalley? You can see, actually losing over the last 12 rounds with his approach play, even more significantly with the putter. But the off the tee, the around the green play, which I would argue are two of the top three key stats this week, he has all the time. Like, he's one of the best off the tee players. He just stripes it down the fairway. Not an elite level distance guy like a Rory, John Rahm, that kind of thing, but above average with the distance, but elite with the accuracy. And with that 4-inch rough this week, I think above average distance plus elite accuracy is going to go a long way. So I like that. I like his floor this week. I like the around the green play. He's proven himself to be a good golfer in difficult conditions. And of course, right, to get that true top-end finish like we want in a GPP, he's going to have to bring that approach play, but he's done it in the past, right? The last 24 rounds, right? Getting 0.4 shots per round. Now, losing over the last 12, right? So that shows you the huge disparity, right, between those two subsets of 12 rounds, but you get the idea. He's got the upside. He's got that pop ability, and at 5.4% owned, definitely a player that I think is worth getting some leverage to in those large field contests. Alrighty, guys, that is all I've got for the fades and sleepers. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead, smash that like button. Also, go ahead, comment down below who you're fading this week and who you're getting to as a sleeper play. And until next time, best of luck with those lineups, with any DFS lineups, outright bets, any prop bets that you're going with here for Thursday. And I'll catch you guys for the live stream tonight. That'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be touching on the golf course, some of the reports from the course that I'm hearing from people, and all of your live questions, weather report, chalk report, just everything you need to know heading into this weekend. So looking forward to it. Make sure to bring all your questions there, and let's get ready to crush this weekend. Best of luck with all of those DFS lineups, boys, and let's get a takedown.